Good morning. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. Welcome to another edition. We are broadcasting live from Cape May County on the Exceptional Conservative Network. I am your host and business diva, Melanie Collette. Joining us this morning is the one and only legal and political analyst and Fox News contributor, Ebony K. Williams, excuse me, to discuss the Rockville, Maryland sexual assault case that happened a couple of weeks ago where a 14-year-old girl was allegedly sexually assaulted by two classmates of hers who happened to also be in the country illegally. So we're going to discuss, there's just several issues associated with that case that I wanted to discuss with her. It brings up many issues, but there are financial implications, of course, associated with that. But I wanted to, because she's a lawyer, I wanted to discuss the legalities of why illegal illegal students would be in the school, and why we as citizens, as American citizens, are made to pay for free education, the court case that's associated with that, and those types of things, and the financial implications as well. So we're going to talk with Miss Ebony K. Williams about that this morning. She's returning to the show, and I am most appreciative that she is going to be here this morning. But before we get into that, a bit of housekeeping and some news. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, you may do so at Money Talk Mel, or like me on Facebook at Money Talk with Melanie, or you can email me at moneytalkwithmelanie@gmail.com. Also, I am streaming live on TECN.biz is where I have migrated to on the website on TheExceptionalConservativeShow.com. So if you go to TheExceptionalConservativeShow.com and click on the TECN.biz tab, you will see that's where I am now. So I just wanted to let everyone know that as well. Finally, if you missed the show, you can catch the podcast pretty much anywhere. You can catch it on iTunes, on Google Play, Android, anywhere. It's everywhere. But I always post it on my Facebook page, and on the show page on Spreaker, and I always post the link to Spreaker and tweet it out, and Google Plus, all over the place. On YouTube, you can catch the podcast anytime. And I'm soon going to have an email list, working on an email list, and we'll have that very shortly. So I can just email it to you as well. Maybe a once a week email or something like that. So I'm going to get that out to you very soon. Now, if you're listening out there and you're wondering, how can I be on Money Talk with Melanie? How can I be? I'm an expert in my field, and I'd like to talk about my book or my article, or, I'm a CEO, I'm an entrepreneur, I'd like to talk about my success. How can I be a guest on the show? Well, you can do so by going to TheExceptionalConservativeShow.com and clicking on Contact Us and giving us your information. And once you do that, we will take a look at the information and contact you. Just please make sure you tell us, what you do, tell us about your book, that kind of thing, and we will get back to you. Also, you can give us a call and leave us a message at 202-660-1329. My extension is extension 2. Now, what's going on in the news? Well, yesterday was Palm Sunday. And this is, of course, Holy Week. 2 churches in Egypt were bombed. unfortunately, during Palm Sunday services. Lots of terrorism going on this week. The Christians are being attacked and have been being attacked the last few years. Now, our former, and I don't want to attack former President Obama, but I don't want to say claim to be a Christian. He says he's a Christian, but Christians have been under attack for quite some time now, and virtually nothing has been done. So it's going to be interesting to see if President Trump is going to do something about the attack on Christians. I mean, Christians in some countries have been virtually exterminated by groups like ISIS and other Islamist militants, like the ones who have claimed responsibility for the two separate bombings that happened on Palm Sunday in Egypt. Pardon me, as well. They're attacking Egypt's Christian minority. Their goal is to exterminate Christians, and it's biblical that would be the goal in these last days. So it's something for Christians to think about, and for those who don't believe that your Christianity and your politics are connected, it's something that you need to think about as you're watching the news. If you think that these things are not connected, you need to think again. I just implore you to think again. Because all of these things that you're seeing going on around the world are absolutely scriptural. So it's just, you look at also another thing that happened on Friday. A man in Sweden drove his truck into a crowd, killing 4 people. Killed 4 people. Another terrorist attack. And he was seeking asylum from his country. Very nice. Inspired by ISIS. So it's getting to be a bit much. So, but like I said, it's scriptural. It's something that you really need to start thinking about and paying attention to. And like I said, those of you particularly, particularly it seems to be those of you who are a bit more liberal, who think that you can compartmentalize your politics from your faith. I don't know about that. I'm just saying. On a brighter note, at least in my opinion, Neil Gorsuch will be sworn in as a Supreme Court Justice today. So that's fantastic news. Last week, the Senate employed the nuclear option, which, can we chill on the nuclear option as the name of that? Like, it's just a smidge dramatic. And I've talked about what the nuclear option is and all that stuff quite enough. I think we know what it is. But Neil Gorsuch is going to be sworn in today. There are tons and tons of cases that need to be adjudicated, and there are quite a few cases that may be re-argued that went 4-4. So that might be re-argued. So it was really important that spot was filled. In golfing news, Sergio Garcia won the Masters. For those of you who are curious and may have missed it, he won the Masters. It's his first major tournament that he won, so congratulations to Sergio Garcia. Nicely done. He gets a nice green jacket. Ugh. Not a big fan of green, but whatever. I've always looked at those jackets like, oh, wow, you won. No, I'm kidding. But congratulations to him. Now, finally, I'm a big fan of Google, just from a technology standpoint. And I was reading this morning that Google is being very naughty to women with their pay scales. So they have a government contract, and they're supposed to submit papers to prove that they are complying with anti-discrimination laws, particularly that they're paying their women the same. And I'm usually the first person to say that that's a bunch of buffoonery about, companies that pay men a lot more than they pay women. but Google has refused to provide the government with that paperwork, which gives me a little bit of pause. Like the Department of Labor is legitimately having to sue Google to get that paperwork. That's not good. That's not a good look for Google. I'm just saying. So I don't know what's up with that, but they're denying it, but they're also not providing the papers. Why is the Department of Labor having to sue to get that? Lastly, on my list, now I travel back and forth from New Jersey to DC quite a bit, and usually I Uber. The Uber is getting sued. The allegations are that their apps are showing their drivers that they're getting less money, and then showing their riders that the trip is a lot more expensive. So in other words, as riders, we're getting charged more money, and then their drivers are getting paid less money. That is not cool. So that's something that we need to look at. I want to consider Lyft. Just saying. And I tried Lyft this weekend. They're pretty fast. So, so we're going to go to a commercial break. And when we come back, we will have Miss Ebony Williams. We will see you on the other side in a few moments.
It's time to celebrate, ladies and gentlemen. Ken McClinton and the Exceptional Conservative Show celebrate 7 years of excellence in broadcasting here on the Exceptional Conservative Network. 9:05 p.m. Monday through Thursday, the finest in conservative talk anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to celebrate!
Hello, this is Leslie Ann Stoffel with The Real Clear Israel. Join me every Sunday morning at 10:05 Eastern Time on the Exceptional Conservative Network, where we'll be discussing Israel with guests from Israel and around the world.
That's The Real Clear Israel, 10:05 Sunday on the Exceptional Conservative Network. Good morning.
Hello. I'm Michael Wright.
Hi, this is Melanie. How are you?
Okay, folks, that's not how it goes. I think I'm Shannon and you're Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. We
Excellent.
are the right
Can you
way,
hear me okay?
Shannon and Mike.
Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern
Okay,
Time.
fantastic. Thank you for
Live
doing the
on
show again.
SHR
I appreciate it.
And on TECN.
Where we'll be talking about all kinds of things.
Sports and politics.
Food and entertainment.
To money.
Family.
Somebody
and anything else in between.
Community. Holidays.
It'll be great. Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, conservative by choice. It's Reverend Ralph Chittum's The Right Guy on the Exceptional Conservative Network from 4:05 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The Right Guy on TECN.
From the war front to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays. It's a new day on New Day, Black and Red.
Hey, it's Jersey Joe. Hook Reaver, Common Sense. You can catch me every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on shrmedia.com. That's every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, shrmedia.com.
Okay, we are back. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we have with us this morning the one and only beautiful and brilliant, and not necessarily in that order, Ebony K. Williams. How are you this morning?
I'm fantastic, Melanie. Good morning to you, and thanks again for having me.
Oh, thanks for being on the show. You know, a couple of weeks ago, this case hit the airwaves, the news about Rockville, Maryland, and I thought, oh my goodness, who do I want to talk to about this? But before we even get into that, let me remind the audience. Though I can't imagine anyone doesn't know who you are, but I'm going to remind the audience about Ebony K. Williams. You see her on Fox News on Outnumbered. She does commentary also along with Kimberly Guilfoyle on the Bill O'Reilly show. And I'm actually just doing this from memory. In addition to, because I watch you, in addition to her appearances on Fox News, she is a lawyer. She got accepted to and enrolled in the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill at age 16 and received her Bachelor of Arts degree. She has a BA in Communications and African American Studies from North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and a JD from Loyola University at New Orleans. Excuse me. Let me say this right. Loyola University, New Orleans College of Law. So I just want everybody to know, and this is what I hate about the rap that Fox News gets, is that just because all the women on Fox News are gorgeous, that they're not smart. And I'm like, you need to check the bios of these women.
No, that's awesome. I really appreciate that, Melanie. Thank you for that fantastic intro. Yeah, great.
Yeah, I'm like, whenever I see somebody say that, I'm like, you need to research the women on Fox News because all of them are brilliant in their own right. You check their educations and their backgrounds and the things that they've done. Kimberly Guilfoyle, another one.
Mm-hmm. You know, of course, long-time prosecutor in San Francisco. Absolutely.
So whenever they say, "Oh, they're just a bunch of pretty faces," I'm like, no, they're actually all quite brilliant and in their own right. Usually have long careers, just like yourself, and are very accomplished. And so I always like to point that out about guests and the women on Fox News. So, and I'm just in awe of you. So I just want to make sure that I point that out.
Way too kind. Thank you, love.
Indeed. So when I saw this case, first of all, I was just I'm infuriated whenever, of course, there's a sexual assault, as I'm sure you probably are, just as a human and as a woman. And especially a young girl, 14 years old. And so when I saw this case, and then in particular, when I found out that the victim was African American, not that it matters, but it's just not that it makes it any more heinous, but it does hit a little closer to home when it's, you know what I mean? And I think you understand what I mean by that.
I do.
Okay. I thought you would, which is another reason why I wanted to talk to you about it. Because one of the things that upset me, and I wanted to run this by you, was about 2 days after the case, and because you're a lawyer, and I think you were a defense attorney at one time as well, right?
That's correct. Yep, many years working as a public defender in the private sector as well, representing clients in cases, in fact, just like this one. So.
Exactly. And we know that generally in these cases, the first thing you do is kind of blame the victim, right? That's a no-brainer. But the about 2 or 3 days after the case hit the news, the prosecutor, the defendant, one of the defendant's attorneys was on Tucker Carlson and said that it intimated very strongly that it was consensual.
Oh yeah, so that is the defense. I don't think there's any, shyness around that assertion. They are both, certainly claiming that this was consensual, that the victim sent illicit photos of herself inviting, a sexual liaison to occur, and that is the defense's theory of the case. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now my contention was that this is thing that bothered me was not that was going to be the defense. What bothered me was that 3 days after the case hit, he said this on national television about this 14-year-old girl. That's what bothered me.
Okay, now why did that bother you? I'm just curious.
Because I felt like if she was a different race, that it's possible he wouldn't have been so bold as to say that. That's
really. I'm going to disagree, only based on my experience. Because
I thought you might.
Was very correct that almost any time there is a rape case, a rape criminal case, civil or otherwise, I guess, and especially when you have evidence of DNA, which so far the Rockland, Maryland Police Department, they, I believe, come out, or certainly it's been reported that there was both blood and DNA evidence recovered from the scene of the incident.
Right.
So the real only pliable defense to that, Melody, is going to be a consensual argument. Because how does the defense, the DNA got there somehow, you know what I mean? So the only thing that you could argue with any plausibility is that indeed sex occurred, but instead of it being forcible and therefore rape, that it was indeed consensual. That's almost the only thing they can argue. And I've actually seen that with victims, both black, white, Latina, and all of that. So I'm based on my experience, not going to say that they only made that argument because she was black or made that more so because she was black. I actually truly believe, based on my legal experience, that even if the victim had been white, they would have really made the same argument because no other one works. When there's DNA recovered from the scene, you almost have to concede that sex and bodily fluids were exchanged. So therefore, your defense has to be built around what scenario would offer up that type of DNA and blood evidence conducive with that type of activity at least occurring. So you don't have to concede the point that sure, these two individuals engaged in some type of sexual activity, but instead of it being rape, you argue consent.
Right. Well, no, I'm totally but totally agree with you on that being the defense. I just wonder if you would have said it on national TV so close after the incident. That's what I
think they would have had to. You know what I mean? Because you can't make a consent defense, by the way, it's one of the more popular defenses in a rape case. Because again, oftentimes there is DNA or other type of forensic evidence that's going to connect the defendant to the case. So you have to explain that away, so to speak, from a defense standpoint.
Right. And
you can't hide the ball on it. You know what I mean? You can't say, well, my guy wasn't there, or it's a wrong eyewitness testimony, or you can't make any of the defense and then come out down the road and say, actually, Your Honor, we're going to submit that sex did take place. You can't have that defense late to the game, so to speak. That has to be a strong assertion, really in the beginning. The sooner that is up there, the better.
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. I totally gotcha. Now, let me. Even with the 14-year-old girl, you don't think the age
even with the 14-year-old girl, as heinous as it feels, Melody, from our perspective, as outsiders looking in,
right?
You gotta put you don't have to, but I would submit that everybody would need to try to put themselves in the defense standpoint for a second to understand why they're doing what they're doing. You've got two young defendants as well, because it's not like these guys are 35. They're also young. She's 14, yes, a pure child. But they're 17 and 18. One's an adult. One's technically still a minor, which is why we know less about that 17-year-old. We know about the 18-year-old, both of Hispanic descent, both, coming over here without documentation, one being put on an ICE hold. So those facts don't look good, in an American narrative. Then you've got DNA and blood evidence allegedly recovered from the scene. What other defense theory are you going to put forward? And certainly that's the obligation of every defense lawyer in this country. We take an oath, every lawyer does, and we have an obligation to come up with a defense strategy. That's our job. Now, it's not our job to make up facts or persuade, make up facts and make up rulings. Ultimately, that's where the jurors come in. Now, that's the beauty of our system. There's going to be probably a panel of 6 to 12 jurors and or a judge that looks at the argument that the defense is making and says, do I believe that a 14-year-old girl asked to be sexually involved with these men to the point where there was blood and all this other stuff recovered from the scene? And that's really the beauty of the law, because if somebody makes a defense makes an argument, prosecutors make an argument, but ultimately it's the trier of fact, the judge and jury, that get to look at the argument, look at the evidence, what corroborates, what makes sense, what doesn't, what's consistent, what's not, who's credible, who's not, and then they get to a finding of truth. That's really where we are.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you make a compelling argument, of course, because you're a lawyer. That's what you guys do.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do. Yeah, you know, and oftentimes we're paid for it, and I understand that. You know, if I'm the mother or family member or community member of this 14-year-old girl, I don't want to hear anything that I just said. You know, that feels very, you know, egregious. But that's what it looks like. That's what the system looks like.
Right. And listen, I understand that. Now, on the other side of that, and I don't know if when we talked before I mentioned this to you, but I am a former public school teacher. So
yes.
I also have, you know, I have a couple of other perspectives on this, because, you know, people obviously when this happened had a lot of questions, like, how can this happen?
How does it happen on school grounds, of course.
And I'm like, do you know how many opportunities there are for kids to be? Are you kidding?
Unfortunately, sex happens on school campuses all the time. Consensual or otherwise.
Yep.
So that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother problem and a whole nother consideration that we need to look at as community members, you know, and what type of surveillance and things like this are going on for our students, where this is even an opportunity. You're exactly right.
Absolutely. And I mean, they don't have to be in the same class for that to happen, especially if you're
not at all.
Nope.
Not at all.
Nope. If you're in, and I said, you know, when it first happened and people were saying that, I'm like, let me tell you something. As a school teacher, I can tell you there's tons of opportunities for that to happen.
Yeah.
Especially,
I think that's part of the problem. I mean, on a bigger level, I mean, I could totally see a potential civil lawsuit. I mean, depending on the jurisdiction, these schools might be immune, but I'm not sure. There's duty and breach there. So despite the bad actions of these two individuals that might have, you know, been might be the case, where's the protection of school officials and the school for its students? I would submit they have a duty to protect students from this type of thing. And indeed, it looks like there might have been a failure of that.
And listen, they absolutely do. And I will tell you as a teacher exactly what happens. Okay, you get a student asked to go to the bathroom, right? Now let's just say, I could see how this scenario could happen. This is just a proposed scenario. Let's just say that kid happens to be looking outside the window, sees the girl walk by, right? Texts his buddy and says, hey, she's walking by, right? So ask me, I don't know that this just happened, ask me, hey, Miss Collette, can I go to the bathroom? Sure, right? Signs a pass, he goes. I'm conducting my class. You know what I'm saying? You're not timing that kid. You know what I mean? 15 minutes later, you notice he's not back yet. You know, and then you might call the office and say, hey, I let so-and-so go 15 minutes ago, he's not back yet. But 15 minutes has gone by.
Right, a lot has happened in that time period, possibly.
Exactly, and so that's the kind of thing that has happened. So now, like, who's responsible? Like, is it my fault that while I was teaching my class that was I not paying close enough attention as a teacher and watching the clock to make sure that he came back? And, like, how do I know what he was doing in the bathroom? How do I know?
There's a lot of blame to go around, and I certainly don't want to put more on our teachers, right? Like, there's already enough to try to, you know, enforce and implement, you know, the curriculum. Now you got to be the patrol guy as well. So I don't know that that's the answer, Melody, but I do think we all need to look at what these protocols look like, because what you just described is the common scenario that things like this happen. You know, whether that's 15 minutes for somebody to go to a stall and rape a 14-year-old, or whether that's 15 minutes to go to the car and recover a gun to shoot up a school. I mean, all different scenarios, right, that can happen that could cause harm to our children. I think the takeaway is, let's look at these gaps, these opportunity gaps that we are creating for our students when we are not more scrupulous around where they are, who has eyes on them, and that kind of accountability.
Absolutely. Now, the school that I used to work in had teachers outside of every bathroom. But there were times when, they were lacking substitutes or something like that, and they would put teachers in classrooms instead of having them on hall duty. So there were times when there weren't teachers in front of the bathrooms. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
Now the other thing that I definitely wanted to talk to you about is because, of course, with these two students being undocumented and the immigration issue being what it is, just being very contentious these days. And I have another perspective on this, and just the cost and the perspective from a teaching perspective, because I was a general ed teacher because I taught computers. So I would have a mixture of students in my class, a number of them undocumented, and I don't know for sure, but if you're 16 and don't speak English, I could probably surmise that you're probably undocumented. I mean, that's pretty much.
That's a reasonable presumption, sure.
Exactly. So, but what I wanted to do was discuss with you the because a lot of people don't realize that public schools cannot ask about the status of students that come into the school, and even if they do know the status, they can't prevent them from getting an education. I believe it's the 1982 Supreme Court decision that that entitles undocumented students to a free education. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it. I mean, that's been the Supreme Court holding, absent a revisit to that. That's kind of where that is. Obviously, it's controversial. And I think in general, Melanie, I mean, whether it's, that issue, whether it's more criminal issues, there's a larger conversation that needs to take place where we are clear on and in a somewhat agreement, I would hope, around where we stand as a country around what rights are extended to non-citizens. Because I think there's a lot of confusion around that right now. I think there's a lot of questions around that, and that leads to a lot of highly contested, emotional, upsetting dialogue with us internally as Americans around what rights are afforded to non-citizens. And I think we really need to revisit that for clarity's sake, because from a legal standpoint, a lot of times there are, like you're saying, rights to education, rights to other programs, rights to due process, things of this nature that are still afforded to people, even though they are not American citizens. And I don't believe that a lot of people are clear on that.
I agree with you. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy watching you on Fox and I enjoy talking to you, is because you have a very balanced approach, especially from a legal perspective, and the way you explain things. And what you just said is a very balanced approach, and a very good point, as a matter of fact, is that there really is no clarity, and there seems to be inconsistency.
Yes, I agree with that. Even from a legal standpoint, there is inconsistency, and I think that's where it's of course, we need to be more accountable as well for consistency around that. If you are not a citizen, these rights apply in these cases, or not. And I think absent more consistency around it, you've got chaos, which is really where we are on the immigration issue. Pure chaos. Absolutely.
And the other thing that doesn't seem to be considered, for example, with the education issue, and this is one of the reasons why I found it appropriate to talk about it on my show, Money Talk with Melanie, is that you're always talking about money. And many of the laws, I mean, we're talking about federal law when we're talking about the ability to ask about status. But let's face it, education is mostly paid for by state and local authorities.
It sure is. Of course it is. Of course it is. So, again, this is a situation of, I'm a more fiscally conservative person. So if the law was up to me, no, I don't. I personally don't understand why, somebody without at least some type of residential status, and I think for me that would include the Dreamers. But absent that, and absent some type of process, we've identified, okay, this is this child's status. They've been vetted. This is the plan to get them some type of legal standing and status. This is where their parents or community is paying into the tax revenue that we use to pay for this beautiful educational opportunity that we all know is nowhere where it should be anyway. Like,
yes.
it needs to be accounted for. I think it's a simple way to put it. And until we get to a system where it is accounted for, it doesn't make sense to me either. You know, and I'm very clear about that, because at some point, the current education system already doesn't work. It doesn't even work for the citizens and the children that are citizens. So then to overwhelm it further with being mandatory provisions for education for students that are citizens, and then we've got, of course, understandable special, considerations at that point. You've got more English as a second language students. You have more need for other types of curriculum built around these students who have different educational challenges. What are we doing?
Yep.
What are we doing, like you said, from a fiscal standpoint?
Absolutely.
And I think we're being quite irresponsible and not serving, by the way, the needs of those students who are undocumented, nor the needs of our citizen students either.
Absolutely. We have to go into a commercial break, but we're going to talk more about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We have Ebony K. Williams. We'll be right back on the other side of the break.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio. The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Hi, my name is Willie Lawson of The Willie Lawson Show here on the Exceptional Conservative Network, Monday through Fridays, 9 a.m. They told me that I needed to be humble, but I couldn't figure out how to do it, so I decided to be awesome instead. That's The Willie Lawson Show, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. here on the Exceptional Conservative Network.
Mr. Nunez, say it ain't so.
Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, Representative Devin Nunez, please step out of the politically correct parallel universe you've gotten stuck in. Your Wempus Americanus apologeticus decision to temporarily step aside as head of the Russian probe pending the outcome of an outlandish progressive-oriented ethics investigation? Sir, I know you said, quote, is in the best interest of the House Intelligence Committee and the Congress, unquote. But that makes about as much sense as saying that the Chucky Schumers of the world, Nasty Pelosi, and even Governor Snyder of Michigan have good intentions regarding America because those progressive globalists do not. Mr. Nunez, your clear and precise investigation had the crooked progressive Democrats shaking in their crappy boots. Oh, I understand that several left-wing activist groups have filed accusations against you with the Office of Congressional Ethics. It was done to prevent the American people from getting the whole truth about improper unmasking of the identities of U.S. citizens and other abuses of power. Such typical Republican style of rolling over and caving into the whims of deviant progressives is both stupid and dangerous for the Republic. I'm Ron Edwards. Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.TheExceptionalConservative.com.
Okay, we are back. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We're talking to Ebony K. Williams this morning, and we're talking about the Rockville, Maryland case where the alleged sexual assault took place in the high school by two undocumented students and a 14-year-old girl. The case is not even close to go into trial or anything just yet, but we were also talking about the cost of having undocumented students in our schools and things like that. And Ebony, I pulled one stat this morning that said that it costs upwards of $52 billion to taxpayers to educate undocumented children in our schools. That's a lot of money, and that's absorbed by state and local governments.
Right, and so this is the thing. This is actually a place that can be addressed if we're at all serious about it, and this is why I know we're not. And see, this is the truth, and nobody wants to say about undocumented issues or immigration challenges, Melody. Let me just tell some real truth here. There are, and this is why it doesn't matter if it's Obama in the White House or Trump in the White House, or I should say Bush. We'll see what Trump does, but I have my suspicions. Bush, it doesn't matter because there are interests on both sides of the aisle, both Republican and Democrat, that benefit from the continuation of a broken immigration system.
Absolutely.
That is the truth.
Yep, I've said it.
That is the truth.
I've said it. Yep, you're right, and I've said it.
Because really what you just described, that what you said, $52 billion, that can be fixed. Let me tell you how we fix it. What we do is we get everybody that we know is undocumented. We come up with either you are at least viable for some type of residency status here, maybe citizenship, probably not, but you could at least be somebody that we know is here. We're keeping track of you. We have an eye on you. We're documenting your taxes being paid locally and federally, and therefore you are still functioning in some type of capacity in this country that we've made a designation around. Okay, and then as such, your kid gets to go to public school because you're tracked as a taxpayer. You might not be a citizen, but at least we know you're a taxpayer. Therefore, you can reap the benefits of tax-covered services. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
How easy that would be? Maybe not easy, but it would make sense and it's doable. There's a reason we don't do that, Melanie. There's a reason we don't do that.
Oh yeah, I hear you. I totally hear you. And I have a friend and an expert that comes on my show. Her name is Eva Rosenberg. She has a website called Tax Mama, and she and I were discussing this very issue on Facebook the other day, and she said something similar to what you said, and I said, listen, I keep it 100. Both sides of the aisle. I'm a Republican, as you know, but both sides of the aisle are completely guilty. Okay.
If this was at all something the GOP was serious about, it would have been done under the 8 years of Bush. If it was something the Dems were serious about, certainly we would have had more under the 8 years of Barack Obama. So we know that there are vested interests in keeping this the status quo, and that's really while a lot of us are disillusioned with the party system and all these narratives because they seem really inauthentic. You know, like what's going on? You don't really want to make it better.
Right.
Because if you did, there's real steps that you could take. Certainly.
Right. No, you're right. No, you will get no argument from me. Like I said, she and I were discussing the same thing. Now, at the same time, I do, especially as an educator, have concerns about what went on in the school and about specifically these kinds of scenarios where we have these kids in school that are unvetted. And some of these kids are not kids. And we don't know anything about their past.
Right. I mean, that's, I understand that suspicion, and believe me, Nelly, I'm very concerned anytime there's a thought around a young girl, let alone a 14-year-old, being assaulted anywhere, at least of all in a place you should feel very safe, which is school. And here's the let's look at all the facts, though. We know these two these two defendants, they are defendants, are undocumented. But let's look further and see if there were real signs that would have told us they shouldn't have been in the school otherwise. And the facts don't really take us there. The facts are they are undocumented. The facts are there was no, because one of them was detained. The 18-year-old we know more about. We know he was detained at some point coming over from Mexico into Texas. He was held for, I believe, 14, 15 days, where they were looking into basically vetting him. Does he have prior convictions in Mexico? Does he have an outstanding criminal record in the state? Does he have any gang ties from Guatemala? Because that was his stated reason for leaving. He was running away from gang violence in Guatemala. And all those answers checked out. He didn't have any convictions in Mexico, didn't have any convictions in the States thus far, didn't have any gang ties. And that's why he was permitted to move forward and be released and come into the States and eventually find his way to Maryland.
Right.
So we don't really have facts that would have told us anyway that this was somebody that would be a likely perpetrator of rape.
Now, I will say this. Now, I did some research, because this is what I do, on some of these countries, and it just so happened I just picked like Latin American countries, and I just happened to pick Guatemala, and just what goes on there, why they're escaping, why they're leaving those countries. And one of the things that I found is that the rate at which children are being abused there is extremely high. Upwards of like 80%. Ridiculously high, okay? And that was a study from 2016 that I found. And I thought, oh my God, so and it's the Wild West there. You know what I mean? There's no law, and it's a patriarchal society. So it seems that there's you know what I mean? So I said that to say, from a cultural standpoint, and this is not to cast dispersions on any particular culture per se, but I'm just talking about the lawlessness that goes on in these particular countries where these people where people are coming from, which is why they're leaving in the first place. But if you take people from those countries and bring them here, and they're kind of used to a certain lifestyle, can we necessarily expect them to adapt automatically?
I mean, I think you're drawing very broadly there, Melanie. You know what I mean?
I think
you can look at the bad characteristics and bad cultural norms of a lot of places, and if that's the litmus test, first of all, you're running into constitutional problems, and don't do business that way.
Oh well, I don't think
we don't assign the characteristics of bad country behavior to individuals.
Oh no,
that's evidence.
Oh no, I don't think we can. I don't think we can do it legally. I really am speaking from a more philosophical perspective. And as far as
I get you, but at the same time, so then what's the remedy there? If the people are just we turn our backs on people that want to escape and want to do a better way of life. It might be the very person that comes here. I mean, let's look at law enforcement and firefighters and people that come here that are from other places and end up being the greatest contributors to American success and way of life. So I think we have to take the good with the bad quite literally when it comes to the immigration system. I'm
wondering if in schools we need to have English as a second language schools, if this is what we're going to do. Because I'll tell you, as a teacher, like for example, I had a class with 25 kids in it. Three of my students were Spanish speaking from 3 different Spanish speaking countries. Spoke no English. Mm-hmm. I speak no Spanish. And I was expected to be able to teach them computer applications through just like, trying to differentiate my instruction through pictures and stuff like that, which was like crazy. So
Well, no, that sounds like a very difficult and probably not the best way to handle that. But again, this is what the education department has to really do some hard work, and we have to help. What is the best solution for educating kids that are not necessarily from here, don't know the language, and we're talking about Latin and Spanish speaking students primarily in this dialogue, but we know that's not every immigrant student. So it's a lot, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend to have all the answers because I absolutely don't. But I think you are talking about important questions. What's most effective for the teacher? What's most effective for all of the students, including the English as a second language students, and also, of course, students that primarily speak English. We don't want to be costing valuable classroom hours around that.
Right.
But at the same time, maybe but there might be. I'm sure there are potential benefits from English-speaking students being alongside their Spanish-speaking counterparts as well. So we don't want to ignore those benefits either.
No, you're right. And also from a cultural perspective, when I first started teaching, I was like, why are some of these kids not taking me, like totally not taking me seriously? Well, after I did some research, I found out that the male students don't necessarily take females all that, they're not really, you know what I'm saying? They're not.
There's probably a million. Go to the South. There's a lot of people down there that not even just the South. See, now again, we're stereotyping, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
That their homes don't function with the woman as the serious leader of the household.
Oh, listen.
So those types of cultural expectations vary a lot.
I've had.
I think, look at children a little bit like a blank slate.
Yes.
And we do our job. I have no doubt you are a powerful, effective teacher and leader in your classroom. And either they get in line with that or they don't. And those that don't, then maybe don't need to be in your classroom. They might not afford the privilege of being in your classroom. That would be my report to that.
Absolutely. And listen, I've definitely had that. I have occasionally had that issue with non-Hispanic males as well. And what it came down to was, you got mommy issues.
Yeah, exactly. But that's even a broader thing.
Right.
So listen, Ellie, I actually have to. I hate to do that to run.
No, so do I.
Meeting, but I want to thank you. I want to thank your listeners. I think this is important. I think again, we have to continue this really clear and important conversation around sex assault because it's not okay. Sex assault on campus, not ever okay, ever. But also talking about immigration in a broader context. What are we doing about it? Are we even serious about finding solutions? Those are tough questions. And if we are, what rights, constitutionally and otherwise, do non-citizens have? Let's be consistent in it. And certainly, ultimately, like I said, for this 14-year-old young girl, we just have to do better. Whether it was rape or whether it was consensual sex. Because that's not okay. And now you're getting into statutory issues around consent anyway. Yeah. Which is we didn't even touch on. But as a defense lawyer, that would be something I would be raising an issue to as well.
Yes. Yes. So, we need to pray for her. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Either way. Thank you so much for being on the show, Ebony. I look forward to talking to you again. You have a great day.
Thank you, darling. Talk to you soon.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye. I want to thank my listeners for listening to the show today, and I want to thank everybody in the chat room. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. Remember, this is important because it is your money.